Hello YouTube, and welcome back to another episode here at WILDMAN Lives. I'm your host, WILDMAN. Now on today's episode, I thought I would do a very quick Q&A. So I get a lot of questions, and sometimes it's a repetitive question, so I want to make sure that I address them, and I usually try to take the top 3 questions that I get, and then I try to answer them so that everybody out there can get the same answer at the same time. So here we go. Now, one question that I get a lot is, how do you train so that you're not getting injuries, whether they're big or small? Now, that's a loaded question right there, because typically how you train and what you're doing and what your specific goal is going to be dependent on how you train and how frequently you're using the same muscle or tendon over and over again. So without knowing somebody's specific goal, it's hard for me to address that question. But here are 3 tips that I like to give everybody, that if they do these 3 things, they're at least mitigating the likelihood of an injury. The first thing is to prime your muscles before you do whatever workout you're planning to do that day. So a lot of people think that they need to do a quote-unquote warm-up, and I actually like to do movements that are called priming movements. And I'm gonna leave a link down in the description. I've done a video about this in the past of what I like to do prior to working out, and it's the same routine I do every single time you see me do my giant set movements, where I'm jumping around, lifting heavy stuff, and being an idiot pretty much in my backyard. So check out that video, and I describe more about how to prime your muscles before you're about to work out. The next tip I'm going to give you is, when you're going into the gym, have a clear plan of what you're going to do. Wandering around the gym and trying to figure out what you're trying to do in the moment, or what you feel like doing in the moment, is probably the best way to get an injury, because you're going to want to do the movements that are fun and not the movements that you need to do. And there's a way to structure your programs where you can make it fun, and you can implement stuff in there that you don't like to do, but it could still be fun just by the way it's structured. And if you want more tips about that, feel free to DM me at WILDMANLifts on Instagram, or leave a comment on this video, and I'll be happy to reach out to you and see what you are doing, and if there's anything I can do to help you in order to improve your workouts and to make them less of a chore. And the last tip that I'm going to give you is, when you're done working out, make sure you're doing accessory movements. Now, accessory movements, a lot of people get confused with. They think, like, for example, after you're doing a deadlift, you should do a bent barbell row after you're done, because that's an accessory movement to the deadlift. And that is actually true, but that isn't the accessories that I'm talking about. The accessories that I'm talking about, and you'll see very common that I do at the end of my videos, is I'm usually taking a band and I'm just trying to pump blood into the areas that I just worked out, such as my shoulders, triceps, legs, shoulders, abs, anything you can think of. This is just to make sure that I'm giving my body a chance to recover the best way possible, and I'm able to isolate those tendons at the end of the workout, because my muscles are tired, and now I can actually pump blood to make sure that the tendons are getting enough nutrients to build in order to hold those muscles that I just fatigued. Another question I get all the time is, why do I lift stones? Do stones actually make you stronger, or are they all for show? Now, the reason why I train for stones, again, is because strong men use stones in competitions. Most of the time they're Atlas stones, which are perfectly round in cylinder, and based upon the diameter, generally weigh the same. So you can kind of figure out and play around with weight based upon the diameter of an Atlas stone. But when it comes to natural stones, those things are not meant to be lifted. They're just whatever you find on the ground. And you kind of have to play around with it to make sure that you're going to be able to lift it in the most efficient way. But in my opinion, if you want to see somebody who is strong, ask them to pick something up and put it on their shoulder, because it is truly a test of strength. And ancient civilizations such as Vikings and Scots and Nordic folk back in ancient times used to pick up stones, and they gave these stones names, right? To indicate if you were a man or if you were ready to go fight in battle. So stones have always been an indicator of strength, and I don't see why it's any different today. I've seen people train in the gym that can lift heavy deadlifts and bench press a lot, but for some reason when they try to wrestle somebody, they just lose really bad, right? And I've never really seen somebody lose really bad in a wrestling match who can pick up a heavy stone and get it to their shoulder. They may not be the best deadlifter, squatter, or bench presser, but that's okay because those are implements that are made to be lifted and can be overloaded, and stones are not. So it's more of a raw, natural strength to lift a stone. And that's why I like to train in them, but it's also mainly just to determine how my training is going, to make sure that I am an overall athlete and an overall strength athlete, and also strongman train with those implements in competition. So you have to be efficient. And the last question that I usually get a lot is, when is the best time to take creatine? Now, this is a loaded question because creatine, you need to do your research on it because there's so many variations of creatine out there, but probably the one that people most are associated with is creatine monohydrate, because creatine monohydrate has the most scientific facts behind that supplement. And so there's a lot more data to go off of. But if you're asking me my personal advice of when you should take creatine, creatine is going to be most efficient, in my opinion, when you are starting to plateau in whatever your specific goal is. So let's say you're trying to increase your bench press, right? Or your deadlift or your back squat. And let's say you were progressing every single time you went to the gym and were hitting those implements. But then one day you show up and you can't do it. You can't go like 5 pounds more. And then you show up next month to do it again and you still can't do it, or you're starting to go down in strength. Creatine would be a good option for you at that point because, in my opinion, you've plateaued, right? Your genetic makeup, your size, your muscles that have just been given to you naturally is starting to fail, right? And you could, in my opinion, would be better, take a look at your workout routine and see if there's anything you could tweak that could possibly help you get to your goal a little bit better and a little bit safer. But if you do that and you're still not hitting your goal, or you plateau again, creatine would be a good option for you, because what it's going to do is it's going to delay that soreness and it's going to help you recover faster. And that's something that is desperately needed when you're hitting the gym a lot or when you're lifting heavy very frequently. So that's just my opinion about creatine, but you should always do your own research and talk to people a lot smarter than me before you take creatine and make it part of your daily supplements. Well, that concludes tonight's Q&A. I really appreciated everybody's questions and for watching my video. Stay tuned next time, and I will be able to answer more frequently asked questions that I get a lot. And if you have questions that you would like answered, please leave a comment or DM me directly at WILDMAN Lifts on Instagram. Really appreciate everybody's time to watch my video, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.